The honourable member for St. George's, Stephenville East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is an honour to rise today in the House to give my first speech. As someone who's worked around the House of Assembly on and off since back in 1989, it is good to finally be allowed into the House and participate in the proceedings. It's certainly a different perspective on things, and I would like to thank the people of St. George's, Stephenville East for placing their confidence in me and electing me as their member. Mr. Speaker, my understanding of the first speech, or the maiden speech, is that it's a little different from a normal speech in the House, and that you're given a little bit more leeway to talk about your district, the district you represent, and tell people about yourself. It is also an opportunity for the member to talk about some of the issues that are important to them. In starting, I want to depart a bit from the normal partisan practices in the House. I want to say something good about a member of one of the other parties. I want to recognize the previous member and minister who represented the district of St. George's, Stephenville East from 2003 until this past summer. I know the previous member worked hard for the district and made a significant contribution to government during her time of service. I want to recognize her contribution over the years and thank her for the work that she has done. I would also like to recognize the other candidates in the by-election held in August. By running, they made a contribution to the political process, and it is a big step to come forward and to offer yourself for public office. And they were both very strong candidates, and they continue to make significant contributions to the district in the work that they do. Since this is my first speech, it's a bit of an icebreaker. I want to tell you a bit about my background. Both my parents are from Codrai, and many members of my extended family still live in the area. I grew up with my aunt and uncle in Jeffreys, which is a little farther along the coast in Bay St. George. Mr. Speaker, after graduating from high school, I went to university first in Corner Brook and then in St. John's, where I finished my first degree in political science and economics. While at the university, I got involved in the Liberal Club on campus and worked on a few election campaigns. After graduating, I moved back to the district and lived in Stephenville for 2 years, where I did the journalism program at the community college there in Stephenville. It was there that I met Shauna, the woman who would later become my wife. She was from Isle of Mort and was going to the college in Stephenville at the time as well. Leading up to the 1989 election, I worked to help get the Clyde Wells Liberals elected, and after the election, I got a job as a junior researcher with the Wells administration. And part of my duties at the time was to staff the government caucus room, and it was a job really that no one else wanted to do, but for me, it was really a dream job. It allowed me to learn more about the operations of the House of Assembly, and it gave me an opportunity to witness some of the most significant debates, I guess, that have happened in this House, the Meech Lake debates, the debates around denominational education. So it gave me a chance also to talk to MHAs and ministers and people who had got elected, and to gain some understanding of the different qualities and the uniqueness of the people who were elected to the House at that time. So it gave me a really good insight into the political process and how things work. And as the years passed, I served in various positions as a political staffer with Liberal members. I was a policy analyst. I was director of research. I was director of communications for a government department. I was director of research in the opposition office, and I was also executive assistant to the leader of the opposition for a while. Since starting at this kind of work in 1988, I have gone from opposition to government, then from government to opposition, and Mr. Speaker, who knows what the future will hold. Mr. Speaker, I enjoyed my time as a political staffer, but I wanted to try something different, and I wanted to get some new and different experiences. I went back to university part-time and eventually completed a master's degree in education policy at Memorial. Just having completed the degree in 1998, my wife and I decided to try something different. Teaching overseas at a university in South Korea was a life-changing experience. It made me more appreciative of the quality of life we have in this country, and especially here in this province. When we returned 2 years later, I decided I would pursue a PhD at the University of Ottawa. I took a year and a half to complete the coursework and then returned to work as a political staffer in the opposition office while I completed the thesis part-time. And just as I completed the PhD, I was starting to look for employment outside of politics. Another interesting opportunity arose within politics. Siobhan Cody, then a newly elected Liberal MP, asked me to be her Chief of Staff, and the allure of this new experience in politics, this time at the federal level, it was too interesting to resist, and I worked in that position for 2 years while I taught part-time at the Department of Political Science and the Faculty of Business at Memorial. After those 2 years at the federal level, I then made a transition into teaching more courses and doing some consulting work and starting a small community newspaper in Mount Pearl and Southlands called The Pearl. I was enjoying teaching at the university and doing research, and I was enjoying the challenge of starting a new business, which was really a return to my roots in journalism. But when the previous member for St. George's Stephenville East resigned this past summer, the call to run was too strong. I knew that if I didn't run, I would later regret it, and always asked myself, what if? And I also knew that by running, I would have an opportunity to make a difference for the province. Mr. Speaker, I want to take some time now to talk about the wonderful district I represent. It is one of the largest, most dispersed districts in the province. It includes towns such as Stephenville Crossing, and St. George's, but it also includes many rural areas such as Colebrook, Knowles Pond, Black Duck Siding, St. Teresa's, Flat Bay, the communities in the Bay St. George South area, and the communities in the Cadre Valley. Politically, the district could be classified as a swing district or a bellwether district. Over the years, it has been represented by both the Liberals and the Conservatives. It is usually represented on the government side of the House, but it has deviated from this pattern several times. For example, in the 1970s, it was in opposition when it was the first district in the province to elect a woman MHA since Confederation. The district is one of the most diverse districts in the province in relation to the heritage of the original settlers. There are many people of Aboriginal background in the district, and it is exciting to witness the revival in this culture in recent years. This revival is evident from the powwow held in Flat Bay and St. Teresa's this summer, which attracted over 5,000 visitors. It's also evident at the museum in St. George's, which has many displays related to Mi'kmaq culture and heritage. Later settlers included Scottish settlers in the Cadre Valley and Heatherton to Highlands area. These areas are amongst the few places in the province with a significant number of people of Scottish descent. There were many English and Irish settlers as elsewhere in the province, but there's also a French heritage in the district that is a major part of our history. After all, this used to be the French shore, and Sandy Point in particular was a thriving international seaport in the 1700s. Another major cultural influence in the area was the American presence at the Harmon Air Force Base in Stephenville. The base was in place from 1941 until 1966. There are many issues in the district, and I only have time to highlight a few today. One of the most prominent issues in the district is health care. In fact, a serious crisis situation is developing for residents in the Bay St. George area. The clinic in Jeffreys has been without a regular doctor for about a year now. This situation is about to get worse as the doctor in the town of St. George's has announced he will be leaving in the middle of December. The absence of these two doctors will add even more stress to the overburdened emergency clinic at the hospital in Stephenville. I have talked with officials at Western Health, and I have had an opportunity to discuss this matter with the Minister of Health to make sure he is aware of the seriousness of this situation. People with serious medical issues are not getting the service they need, and it is a serious problem, and it has gone on for too long. Another issue is the state of roads in the area. Some of this problem is based on the deteriorations of roads over a long period of time. There are major problems that need to be dealt with. For example, this would be the state of Fortunes Road in Jeffreys and the road to the Highlands. These are barely passable and are comparable to roads in third world countries. Many of the roads in the Codroy Valley are in a similar state. Another related issue is the lack of proper road maintenance. This lack of regular maintenance has allowed small problems to eventually become big problems. And this is not a criticism of the people who do the work. It is more a problem of the way things are set up. People in this province are reasonable in their expectations, but they want to be treated fairly as well. Mr. Speaker, another issue in the area I represent is fracking, and I was pleased that the Liberal Party has been in the forefront in calling for an independent public review of this issue, and I'm also pleased that government, although reluctantly, have arrived at the same position. At this stage, it is important to keep an open mind and listen to what people have to say about this topic. One of my basic beliefs is that if people have an opportunity to ask questions and gather information on a topic, they are capable of making good decisions on issues that impact them and their communities. Many on the West Coast are asking why people with expertise in environmental science, public health, tourism, and fisheries are not included in the review panel on fracking. They have also pointed out the failure of the government to appoint any women, anyone of Aboriginal descent, and indeed anyone from the West Coast. Mr. Speaker, the concerns and questions which have been raised are reasonable. If we look at the panel that examined the fracking issue in Nova Scotia, it had a much broader composition. It had 14 members, and in making his report, the chair of the panel noted how the diverse composition really added to the work of the review panel. The panel members who have been appointed so far are all fine people. They have extensive qualifications, but I asked the minister to listen to the concerns that have been raised and consider adding more members to this panel. Mr. Speaker, there are many issues in the district which I could talk about today. Cell phones and internet access in rural areas, opportunities for growth in agriculture, Port Harmon and the potential that exists at that port. The airport is another area, the community college headquarters, and maintaining the presence there in Stephenville, and exploring ways that the college presence can leverage economic growth in the area is also important. The province's Trailway Park has lots of potential to be an economic generator, and the Codroy Valley wetlands and the significant Ramsar designation is also another issue as well. And there are many other issues, and over time I will touch on more of them in the House, I'm sure. Mr. Speaker, over my first few weeks in the House, I've been observing and thinking about how my experiences relate to some of my previous work and how it relates to the political science courses that I've taught and some of the research work that I've done in the field of political science. One paper that I did a few years ago and presented at the Canadian Political Science Association comes to mind. I did a comparison of the rules in provincial legislatures across Canada, and the paper looked at things such as the way questions, petitions, and private members' bills and other things are dealt with in legislatures. But the thing I want to talk about a bit today is the committee structure. The whole purpose of committees is that they do tasks that would be too cumbersome for the full legislature to do. And the roles and powers assigned to these committees vary by province. For example, in Nova Scotia and Ontario, committees have a role in reviewing government appointments to agencies, boards, commissions, and Crown corporations. In other provinces, they have a role in developing and reviewing legislation. In this province, with only a few exceptions, the committee structure has basically been inactive for the past 14 years. Only in the last few years has the role of the crucial committee, like the Public Accounts Committee, begun to reassert its role in monitoring government expenditures. During the Wells years, there were legislative review committees which examined pieces of legislation and often held public sessions. The process seemed to work quite well, and in several circumstances led to better legislation coming to the House. The question I think we should be asking ourselves is, what is the cost of not having committees? What are the costs of inadequate debates and review of legislation? And usually the consequences are pretty subtle and not very dramatic. It's a piece of legislation that passes but comes back to the House for amendment a short time later. It's a piece of legislation that causes unexpected problems, and it's a less effective public policy decision. So the whole idea around democratic institutions is that debate in the House will arrive at better decisions. I look forward to continuing to learn more from more experienced members about how this legislature could be more effective. It is important to look at what we can learn from other jurisdictions and our past experience to improve what we do here. Mr. Speaker, I have talked briefly today about the district and some issues that are important to me. It is in the time ahead I will get an opportunity to expand on these items and to talk about many other things as well. In the months and years ahead, I look forward to making a contribution to the district I represent and the overall government of the province. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.